John W. You can reach him at a number that starts with 917.
John W. John walked the roads. He was an interesting guy. Very interesting guy. One of my favorite stories about John, this is a good one, this is a good one. Me and Zach McKee, that's another name drop. Zach Mack from way back in the day. We skateboarding downtown. I think this was our senior summer, and I was cruising around downtown, and they're building the new addition on the church parish center down there. And earlier in the day, John broke one of my ramps, and he felt super bad about it. He didn't know what to do, and was all distraught, and you know how John gets. And we're walking back to my house after a skate session, and they see this big pile of plywood, and John's like, "I'm gonna get you a piece of that plywood." And I'm like, "All right, man, but keep in mind that the police station is right across the street." And John was like, "Whatever, dude. It's like 10:30 at night. I'm gonna get a piece of that plywood." So he goes over there, picks up a big sheet of plywood, puts it over his head. We're walking down the street, get about 20 steps away, and cherries pop up behind us, lights flash, and sirens going. Cop puts him in the back, and I haven't seen him since. I don't know what happened. He was one of my best friends. He was like a brother to me, and I miss him. I miss him.
Okay, John lived in our home for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever. The most amazingly creepy thing about John, though, was he would all of a sudden just appear out of the darkness. You'd be walking in the room, and he'd just be there. It was just like creepy. I mean, it was just like you'd walk into the kitchen, and boom, there's John. You'd walk into the living room, boom, there's John. Never a sound. It was like a Black Panther.
Like Jesus was driving a taxi cab, and she hopped in, and he like.
It was John.
No, he was in the space with us, and yeah, and so then the lady came in, and she was just a mess. I don't know where she came from or whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, Jesus just dropped me off here. He said to come in here and talk to you guys." And that was actually the second person who said that God sent him there.
I don't know.
Somebody tell Cora.
Okay, it's just like the last time I ever like heard from John, and I always thought John was my really good friend. Like I was new to Minnesota, and he was always really cool. And last year I lived in San Diego, and I heard that John lived in Venice Beach. And so I was like, oh, I'm going up to LA. I'm going to call John. So I call him up, and I'm like, hey, John, how's it going? And for a while he just like went with it and pretended like he knew who I was. And then all of a sudden he's like, wait, so who is this? I was like, this is Max. He's like, oh. I was like, you know, the short one. He goes, oh, the short one. Oh, what's up, Max? And then I was like, nothing much, I'm coming up to LA, and I was wondering if you wanted to hang out. And he was like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, you should call me. And then he was like, well, I can't really hear you right now. I'm at a parade in downtown Compton, so I'll have to call you back. And then he never called me back.
And then she passed out in the hallway, and everybody was just like, oh, get her out of here. And they were like all like pushing her with their feet, like, trying to drag her out. And I was like, you guys get away from her. And like I went over, and I put my hand on her head, and she just like woke up, and she was just like, you've got the healer's touch and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, thanks, all right. And we were like, we gotta go though, so see you later. And she's like followed us outside and shit, and she's like, where are you guys going? And I was like, oh, we're going home.
Last time I saw John W. was in Chicago, and we skateboarded a bunch. He had no idea where we were going at all. Like, we'd have to stop, and
It's really boring.
he'd be in front of me, he'd be like, do you know where we are? Like, no, like, you live here. He'd be like, I think we're going the wrong way. Like, we'd have to call Eddie and, like, get directions and stuff. It was super bad.
All right, this one. This is a good one. This is a quickie. The Red Roofs. They're not red anymore, they're white. They're down there for a birthday party. I believe it was Tim Fulton and John W.'s kind of like having a joint birthday party, you know?
No, I think it was Mojo's birthday.
Mojo! I think you're right. I think he's right. Someone's birthday party. Anyway, skating the roofs, having a good time, and of course the fuzz shows up, cops, lights, and giving us the lecture like, oh, you kids, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, you guys gotta go. So we're all getting ready to go, and we're looking around like, where's John? We're supposed to give him a ride home. Like, no one's left yet. We're all looking around like, where the heck is John? And no one knew where John was. And so we just get in our car, and we're like, I guess we're going to go home. And we start driving out, and we're going up the hill, getting out of Hidden Falls, and we hear someone just crashing through the woods, and like a deer, John just appears on the road, and it was so majestic, and it's one of my favorite memories. Just the way he looked coming out of the woods like that, like it was humbling. Oh yeah, we picked him up.
Hey John, just to let you know, I still got that little chunk of red skateboard you gave me for my keychain, and I see it every day, and man, I think of you, and whatever goes on in your life, man, you're always welcome in my teepee anytime, buddy.
All right, well, the first time I met John W. Was in study hall, and it was like maybe the second week of school. He was the new kid. He showed up, and I was sitting at study hall by myself. I used to play electronic Connect 4 by myself. And they stuck him at my table, and I didn't know who he was. And we started talking about skateboarding and stuff. And then this teacher came into the room, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was his dad. And he had a big mustache. He looked like Burt Reynolds. And I said, oh, that teacher's funny. I was like seeing him around because he looks like a porn star from the 1970s or something. And John gave me like a polite laugh, and then I found out like a couple of weeks later that it was his dad.
Yeah? Okay, one time when I was skating with John in St. Paul, when he used to live in St. Paul, we were skating that bridge, this bank, like the arches of the bridge, you can skate the arch and the bottom like 4 feet of it, and there's a little crack and you stall in the crack or whatever. We were skating this bridge, and right neck, like feet away from the busy highway traffic on the bridge. And we're skating there for a while. After like 5 minutes, we looked over the edge of the bridge and watched a guy smoke crack down by the river. And John's like, yep, that's how people smoke crack. And I was like, that's cool. I'd never seen that before. And then we kept skating that bank for a little while longer, and then all of a sudden this guy on a scooter goes by, and he's like, bam, 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 bam. Goes up about like 100 yards, stops, picks out a beer from the back of his scooter, sets it on the curb, and just drives away. Doesn't even look back. And we look at him, and John just like pushes up to the thing and skates it. And I was like, did you know that guy? Or like, why'd that guy do that? He's like, oh yeah, like I saw him the other day, and he had too many beers to carry, so I helped him carry him to the end of the block, and he said he'd get me back one day. And I was like, oh. So when we left the spot, he just went and picked up the beer and drank it, and we just kept skating.
Okay, so when I went to Stout, and Lance and Ryan and John came to visit me, and in the middle of the night, John had to go to the bathroom, and he couldn't find the bathroom, so he just peed in the janitor's closet. And then he told us about it the next morning, and it was really funny.
Okay, the first time I met John was in high school, and Ryan Worthley introduced me to him, and he was just like, hey, I'm John, and he had this picture, this button of a little kid, and then he was like, hey, I'm John, this is my son. I don't really know. A little bit later, we did a project together on Amish people. It was in high school. It was pretty cool, and he was like 18, and he always asked Miss Wickham to prom and dates and stuff. You know, we hung out at Ryan's sometimes. I miss that dude. Let's go. Keep going away.